Welcome to Thrive Beyond Pornography. We're your hosts, Zach and Darcy Spafford. Hi.
Hello.
So Darcy has some big news to share with you guys today.
So today was my first time ever giving a talk in Sacrament. It went way better than I expected. I based my talk on the book Believing Christ, and I shared my raw experience with the entire ward about how I've struggled with not feeling good enough and that nothing I ever do will be enough, and how learning about my Savior and striving to create a relationship with him gives me the strength to keep going.
Yeah, it was a great talk. I thought it was awesome. I was actually really proud of you. I was really proud that you got up there and you spoke. And this is something that Darcy literally, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but she literally will always say no. And she kind of volunteered this time. So I was super, super proud of her.
Aw, thanks for being proud of me. I was
welcome.
actually proud of myself too, because man, the anxiety was real. But actually, once I got up and just started, it was totally fine, except for I cried a lot, which it's okay.
Hey, by the end of the talk, you weren't crying though.
I know. I was solid.
You did so good.
Okay. So in this week's episode, we would like to discuss how quitting pornography and diets are similar and how the way we approach the subjects significantly impact our overall success.
So we'd like to start by recognizing the differences in the moral value that we place on food versus pornography. And I want to be clear, we're not arguing for the two items' moral equivalency. We're simply utilizing this as a way to get your mind flowing on the subject and get you to a place where you're starting to understand this.
Our hope with this discussion today is to bring awareness for all parties involved, so both the husband and the wife, around the similarities between dieting, losing weight, and quitting pornography, and how when we can see things from a behavioral standpoint and what's going on for each of us in these arenas, we can begin to create an environment where we begin to understand each other more and can just, I guess, relate to each other. What comes to mind when you think about going on a diet with the end goal of losing weight? Often we think of meal plans, exercise regimens, willpower to stay away from certain favorite foods. We label foods as good food, bad food, and we create many other short-term measures that will help us lose a certain amount of weight so that we can fit into certain clothes or look a certain way or be ready for our 40th birthday or for the cruise.
Oh, yeah, the cruise. We've never been on a cruise. We should do a cruise.
I know, we should.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift from the idea from a diet to a lifestyle change in how we eat.
So my dad was a pretty interesting, kind of great example of this. When I was a kid, he stopped eating meat. It stopped being something that he felt would help him achieve his values of feeling healthy and comfortable in his body. He has this condition called gout, and he decided that eating meat just wasn't worth the pain that it caused or the medication that he would have to take. I think often when we approach the struggle to eliminate pornography from our lives, we're given targets, and sometimes we set targets, designed to provide us with some distance from the last time that we viewed pornography. When we, use things like setting up internet filters and plan our internet use and seek motivation and other measures to put those barriers up so that we can, create a certain amount of time between the last time we chose pornography and today, we are, in that struggle about creating targets. All of these ideas, they're good, and they may help improve our capacity to, create some wins around our choices. And if something works for you, just keep doing it. I'm not saying don't do it. But it's also worth noting that for many, achieving a certain amount of success for a short period, only to fall back into old patterns, can really be discouraging, especially if that creates a sense of hopelessness and failure.
I think for all of us who have tried to lose weight, we can see how when we set a goal to lose a certain amount of weight and then we arrive at that goal, oftentimes one of the first things we do is we reward ourselves with eating at Cheesecake Factory and getting a cheesecake, right? It's like the second that we have arrived at the place that we are trying to get to, we almost instantly sabotage ourselves and get off that path of what we were on and get back on the old track of how we got to where we were in the first place. In that process, it is worth considering how the measures you choose to use to mitigate your pornography choices are more like a diet than a lifestyle change.
So to help you create a lifestyle change rather than a diet, we'd like to offer you 3 ideas that often come up in our work around pornography. So the first idea is, am I expecting immediate results?
One of the first things you'll see in a diet advertisement is something to the effect of, lose 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks. Often, this is the same
Why can't
mentality.
we just lose that same 10 pounds every 2 weeks?
I know, that'd be amazing. No. Often, this is the same mentality that we seek to impose on our process of overcoming pornography from someone who has been using pornography to help manage their thoughts and feelings and urges
to someone who doesn't. Sometimes this is because spouse wants that immediate shift, which is really quite understandable. We've talked about that on the podcast. And we really, just want to be clear here that starting this process is likely to have ups and downs, good days and learning days. And a diet mentality is about making quick changes that may not actually be sustainable. A values-based approach to overcoming pornography and creating the relationships that you want is rooted in realizing that you'll likely need to take strides in the right direction without expecting everything to be perfect in a shortened timeline. This is why our Thrive Beyond Pornography for Couples has 5 pillars, starting with just reframing the pornography struggle, just changing the way that we think about what's happening with our pornography struggle.
And the way we interact with it, and we interact with each other around
the
struggle.
Exactly. We really can't change what we can't see clearly or understand. And if we expect immediate results, there's a really good chance that we've not understood the problem. Just like with a diet. If you're expecting immediate results with a diet, there's a really good chance you have not understood what's actually going on in your body. The second question that you're going to want to ask yourself when you're thinking about this from a perspective of, is this diet mentality or is this a values mentality, is, am I making values-based changes or am I simply setting a goal? So goals are essential to measuring and making progress in significant parts of our lives, but they're totally different than each other. They have different functions within our process.
Just today, I was talking to my neighbor about this.
So we talked about how goals and values function differently in episodes 108 and 109, and I'll link to those in the show notes. So if the underlying value that we're trying to achieve is to be a healthy person, one of the components of how we try to do this is by maybe eating a vegetarian diet. So for the purpose of this discussion, I'd like to give an example of my cousin and his wife, who are eating vegetarian for the month of November. Their goal is to abstain from all meat products for the month. Once that goal is achieved, they're likely going to return to eating meat at some level.
Well, they actually set it up that way so that they could eat Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, so it's probably it ends at the end of this week, or Thursday is probably when it ends.
Yeah.
Right. So they've taken that time to stay away from meat for a little while, and once that's achieved, they're going to go back to eating meat, probably at about the same level, and maybe even a little bit more. I know if I tried to go be a vegetarian for a month, I think that next month I would eat all the bacon I could find. And you can see how the goal is in the service of the value, right? So their value is to be healthy, but it's likely to be set aside at the end of the target period. We often see overcoming pornography as a goal that needs to be accomplished as quickly as possible. And then when a certain period is passed, our brain actually offers us ideas like, oh, you've done so much, you deserve a break, and other ideas that kind of interrupt our stride. We all know someone who eats very healthily.
People who eat healthy all the time, who choose to eat vegetables and fruits, lean meats, and low carbs, are all about living in line with their values and creating a healthy lifestyle that is in line with their personal integrity. Similarly, overcoming pornography forever means moving towards values that do not include pornography viewing, behaviors like healthy sexual expression, open discussion of thoughts, feelings, and urges, and creating the freedom to play and explore with our spouses.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important component of this. It's not simply saying, I want to stop X behavior. Like if I were to go on a diet and I were to say, okay, I just want to stop eating fatty meats, that might not actually help me eliminate fatty meats from my life because it doesn't have an underlying value. There's no meaning to that underlying choice. Where if I can focus on figuring out, well, what is it that I actually value and what is more important to me than ribeyes, which are my favorite, then I can see that leaving behind that choice, that food behavior, or leaving behind pornography in the case of those of us who have struggled with pornography is about becoming something better and having something more than what we're leaving behind. Okay, the third question is my plan about willpower and motivation, or does it have skills, practice, and progress at its core? This last one is a valuable way to look at what my plan actually looks like. So, if you have not sat down and created a plan and laid out a process and set up a way to practice and progress, then you might be relying on willpower and motivation to kick in, so, at the very moment that you need it, and then hope it's there again the next time you need it, and so on and so on.
We know that willpower and motivation are finite resources created by our minds for external threats and problems. Zach covered this in depth in episode 38, which he'll link to in the show notes. The good news is there are specific skills that, if you learn and you practice regularly, you can rely on them to automatically kick in when you need them without needing to draw upon willpower.
So, this is the process of creating a habit of reacting to your brain in ways that follow your values rather than what often happens to many of us who struggle with pornography. We just follow a pattern of moving away from our values and choosing pornography. This is a process that we offer in our brand new Move Beyond Pornography portion of our program with clear, actionable steps to learn and practice so that you can create automatic reactions. So you've probably experienced periods where pornography is not problematic because your motivation and your willpower were high and strong. And I know this was the case for me, not just in my struggle with pornography, but with all kinds of difficulties in my life. Then once that motivation decreased and the willpower was used up, I would fall back into old operating habits, old ways of just doing the same thing I was doing before without really feeling like I had changed anything.
But just like brushing your teeth first thing in the morning, if you will build a skill-based habit of reacting to your brain when it offers you pornography, you are more likely to succeed because you don't have to use a lot of energy to do what is right for you. When it's a habit, it gets done. When it requires decisions to be made and energy to be expended, it might get done for a while, and then that success is likely to fade. Just like a diet, if it takes willpower not to eat the chocolate cake, you might succeed. If it is just that you have a habit of never eating chocolate cake, then it is just how you do things. You just are somebody who just doesn't like chocolate cake or just doesn't choose to eat it because they don't like the way it makes them feel.
And the way to create habits is to set up ways to practice it, engage that practice on a regular basis, and make it so that you can automatically do it without thinking about it. I'm often reminded of free throws. Free throws are a habit. The more you do them, the more you are capable of doing them, regardless of the circumstances. This is the same thing we're doing with every skill set within our program. It's setting up and creating a process for you to, one, learn the skill, and two, practice it so that it can be an automatic way of addressing the issues when they come up. So Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully these 3 questions have been valuable to you. Take a look at how you're dealing with your pornography habit and just ask yourself, am I expecting immediate results? Am I making values-based changes, or am I simply setting a goal? And then lastly, is my plan about willpower and motivation, or does it have skills, practice, and progress at its core? This is the way to succeed. Darcy and I would love to work with you and your spouse in our program. It is a fantastic way to not simply eliminate a pornography habit, but move beyond betrayal, set up a new and thriving relationship between you and your loved one so that you can become the people that you want to be and enjoy each other and not simply endure each other, which I think is what sometimes we do in marriage. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Please feel free to reach out to us. Please feel free to set up a consult with Darcy and I at zacspafford.com/workwithzach, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Thrive Beyond Pornography. If you're seeking guidance and support to overcome pornography for good and begin creating a thriving life beyond it, check out my free webinar, How to Overcome Pornography with Skills That Actually Work. You'll learn practical, proven skills guided by an expert coach who has personally overcome pornography. Whether you're getting started for just yourself or along with your spouse, Darcy and I can teach you the tools that will help you put your life on the right path for you. Be sure to check out the show notes for a direct link, and if you could take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it would mean the world to us. Your reviews play a significant role in helping others discover the show so they can join us on this transformative journey. Thank you for being part of the Thrive Beyond Pornography community. Until our next episode, stay strong, stay focused, and keep thriving.